before I just move ahead, I want to sit with those words for a moment. You were knit together in your mother's womb by your Creator. Your uniqueness is not a challenge for the rest of the community to deal with. Your uniqueness is the gift that you bring us. Knit together in your mother's womb. Our second scripture lesson comes from Exodus, chapter number 32, beginning with verse number 1. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered around Aaron and said to him, "Come, make gods for us, who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." Aaron said to them, "Take off your gold rings that are on the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." So all the people took off the gold rings from their ears and brought them to Aaron. He took these from them, formed them in a mold, and cast an image of a calf, and they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made a proclamation and said, "Tomorrow shall be a festival to the Lord." They rose early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought sacrifices of well-being, and the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to revel. The Lord said to Moses, "Go down at once. Your people, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt, have acted perversely. They have been quick to turn aside from the way that I commanded them. They have cast for themselves an image of a calf and have worshipped it and sacrificed to it and said, 'These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt.' The Lord said to Moses, 'I have seen this people, how stiff-necked they are. Now let me alone so that my wrath may burn hot against them and I may consume them, and of you I will make a great nation.' But Moses implored the Lord his God and said, 'O Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say it was with evil intent that he brought them out to kill them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce wrath, change your mind, and do not bring disaster to your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, how you swore to them by your own self, saying to them, I will multiply your descendants like the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have promised I will give to your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever.' And the Lord changed his mind about the disaster that he planned to bring on his people." May God again bless the reading and hearing of this word, and may we hear in it a word that is to us and is for us on this particular day. We are an open and affirming church of the United Church of Christ. Some of you were around when you engaged that process and ultimately embraced that designation. What a fantastic decision. Some of you were not around. And so for you, I want to tell you what being open and affirming doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that we will offer one another and our LGBT brothers and sisters the tepid gift of tolerance. Don't get me wrong, tolerance has its place. If we're choosing between rejecting one another and tolerating one another, then by all means choose tolerance. If we're choosing between hurting one another or tolerating one another, again, by all means choose tolerance. If we're choosing between a stance of antagonism or tolerance, well, once again, make the choice for tolerance. But let's be clear about what we're really getting into when we unwrap the gift of tolerance. Tolerance says, I would just as soon you weren't around. But since you are, I'll use my best manners when I pass you in the hallway. Tolerance says there's something not quite right about you, but because of my pristine Christian character and upbringing, I'll tolerate you and all the stuff about you that's just not quite right. Tolerance says, I don't care much for you or your ways, but for the time being, I will tolerate you until you have a chance to come around and be a little bit more like me. That's tolerance. But if I'm speaking for me, I have to say I'm not much interested in that sort of gift. I'm certainly not interested in it here in our faith community. Instead of tolerance, I want all the people at every party that I am ever invited to be sitting there with bated breath, waiting for me because they believe the party can't start until I get there. No. I don't want tolerance. I want something just short, just shy of a ticker tape parade every time I walk in the room. Keep your tolerance and give me some of that. At this open and affirming church, which is the Congregational Church of Pinehurst, we do not pledge to offer our LGBT family or one another, whoever we are, the lukewarm gift of tolerance. But instead, we offer one another a full-on, full-blown, out-of-hand celebration of one another as we are, while offering as well encouragement on the road as we still become what we have not become quite yet. On this Pride Sunday, we remind ourselves that we have accepted a vocation. And in that vocation, it is my joy to say to you that I don't offer you even an ounce of tolerance. We only offer one another love and celebration and thanksgiving for each unique presence. And in that vocation, we will celebrate one another, we will encourage one another, and we will advocate with one another. And I'm being very careful about that wording. We will advocate with one another. We don't advocate for our LGBT family as if we straight people have some strength that they do not. No. We advocate with one another. Because all the gifts are needed and all the voices are required in harmony if we are to make a better world for all people. And knowing that in our imperfect world there is stigma which still remains for our LGBT friends and family. Because there is stigma that still remains, we willingly and gladly, in whatever ways we can, all of us accept that stigma upon ourselves until we make this world what it should be. This is our vocation at the Congregational Church of Pinehurst. Now, I want us to consider our old friend Moses. And as we do, I want us to think about vocation and our particular vocation as an open and affirming congregation. To speak of Moses, we have to start by saying, I've said this before, that if he didn't have anything else, he had chutzpah. It's a Yiddish word meaning audacity, nerve, or just plain guts. He had it. If you don't believe me, just observe the details of this story, which I want to run through quickly. He had so much chutzpah that it takes a little bit of chutzpah from me just to tell you the story. Because when the story gets weird, and it will, I need to remind you, I'm just reporting. I didn't write it. Sometimes I have people in talking about other forms of faith saying I couldn't embrace that religion because it's just so weird. And I want to say, and sometimes do, have you read our book? Anyway, Moses had been on the mountain receiving instructions from God, which ended up being written on stone tablets, and he had been gone for 40 days and 40 nights. And the people down at the bottom of the mountain, they became restless. They became anxious. And they began to wonder if Moses is ever going to come back, and if Moses doesn't come back, what's going to become of them out in the wilderness? Moses had the compass, right? What was going to happen to them? They became so anxious that they needed something to give them comfort, and they asked Aaron to create something for them. And Aaron, in a pretty shrewd move, talked them all out of their gold, their gold earrings and their rings. They gave that to Moses, and Moses created for them a golden calf. And they named that golden calf. They declared that golden calf now to be their God. And so along with idolatry, the text says that something broke out called revelry. Revelry is the Hebrew word used there illustrates, announces a pretty wild party. I mean, if you can think of a fraternity party, none of you ever went to any fraternity parties, but imagine that. I believe, however, this to be Moses' greatest moment, and I want to tell you why. God calls Moses' attention to what's going on down there at the bottom of the mountain and instructs Moses to go down there on the double. And when Moses gives him these instructions, God speaks in a telling way. Did you catch it? God said, go down there because your people, Moses, who you brought out of Egypt, have become corrupt. All of a sudden, according to God, they aren't God's people anymore. They now belong to Moses. Are you like me? Did you know you were in trouble when your dad came home? Say your mom was there already, and she said, you need to go in there and talk to your son. We find out as we keep reading that God is not only disowning them, but in God's anger is preparing to destroy them, to be rid of them. God's fed up. But even that is not quite the all of it. God makes Moses an offer and gives him an out where these stiff-necked people are concerned. I will destroy them, God says, but I will make of you a great nation. God is about to change the parameters of the promise which had been made long ago to Abraham. God offers Moses a chance with a new and more agreeable group of people. Moses made a great name for himself, but I don't know that he ever rose to any greater heights than right here. Now, I'm going to do some paraphrasing, but it's not a loose paraphrase at all. I'm getting pretty close to exactly what happened here. Moses says thanks, but no thanks to the offer of a new group of folks to journey with. And then, this is where he gets really brave. He turns to God and says, you, God, brought them out of Egypt. These are your people. And it is your great name on the line, because if you destroy them out here in the wilderness, the people back in Egypt are going to be asking, what in the world is wrong with the God of the Hebrews? That's some chutzpah. That is what it takes to point out to the one who created the universe that they are about to make a bad PR move. God, or Moses, called upon God to repent. Catch that. Moses called upon God to repent. And the kicker of it all is God did. Moses demanded to this great power that the people of God be called the people of God. Moses demanded that the children of God be treated with the dignity that belongs to a child of God. I ask us to be thinking about vocation today. What a profoundly wonderful vocation it is that we name one another people of God, children of God. And then we dig in our heels and stand against any power that would tell any of us something else. I find the images elicited by this passage to be some of the most personally challenging in all of the biblical narrative. They challenge the validity of claims of universal love that do not find local application. Moses found favor with God and rose to greatness not because he made politically and theologically correct statements of compassion and love for all people, which cost him nothing. No, he rose to greatness because he attached himself to a grossly imperfect group of people, which sometimes cost him everything. Moreover, he challenged any power which threatened them. He didn't craft eloquent sermons about forgiveness, but he did forgive those who at times seemed almost unforgivable to everyone else, even God. It was messy and it was difficult, but it kept the people together and allowed the people to move forward. I suppose simple language is required. We can't speak of a vision of universal love for all people if we can't love those who are already in our vision. We can't speak of forgiveness as the path to new life if we can't forgive those who have injured us. We cannot speak of hope for the world and a passion for a better world unless our passion for those closest to us leaves us no choice but to keep standing with them. Now, if we were to follow this story forward, we would find Moses coming off the mountain, and in the span of just 2 verses, he broke the tablets which contained the law, and then he destroyed the golden calf. Both of them proved to be equally fragile, but what was not fragile was his passion for his people, who he declared to be the children of God, no matter who said otherwise. I have on occasion used a material for a sermon illustration that came from one of the few sermons that I remember from 40 years ago. I was in college and attending the Baptist Student Union in Eatonton, Georgia, and it was the spring of 1983, and I was preparing to spend a summer as a summer missionary in New England. Now, I know we've got some folks from New England here. You might be amused to know that we sent student missionaries to New England just to help you get on the right path. But I was gathered in an auditorium with 400 or so other young people, college students. The speaker was a pastor whose name I still remember, Bill Self. He was a pastor of a growing church in Atlanta, and he'd been asked to be the keynote speaker on Saturday night. And he opened his sermon by engaging us with a question. And he said, "How many of you want to be defenders of God?" Just so that we knew that it wasn't a rhetorical question, that he wanted an answer, he asked us to raise our hands, and almost every hand in the room went up. And then there was a pregnant pause. And what we expected to be born out of that pregnant pause was a rousing sermon giving us our marching orders to be defenders of God. And instead he said, "I'm sorry to hear that you're so intent on wasting your lives. God's all grown up," he said. "God doesn't need your puny selves to offer defense. But there are people out there who need advocates, friends, and family. People with the courage to stand with and for them." He went on to preach a sermon which challenged us to know that when we find ourselves defending God, we're not defending God, we're defending our tiny image of God. And when it's done at the expense of vulnerable people, we are standing on ground which is dangerous for everyone. It's not overstating the case to say that that sermon had an impact on me, which has lasted and evolved for the entirety of my life. I want to, however, leave the safety of quoting someone else and return now to my own words. When we defend the image of God, and we do so at the expense or the detriment of vulnerable human beings, not only is it our image of God that we are defending, but is an image every bit as idolatrous as that golden calf that they constructed in the desert. And so, like our brother Moses, we have accepted a vocation, all of us. And in that vocation, we will demand that all of God's children be called God's children and be treated with dignity that is befitting a child of God. There will be people who misunderstand us, and they will misunderstand us because they want to misunderstand us. I've had on so many occasions been asked, whether it's here at another church that I served, so you're the pastor of that gay church? And I used to waste some of my breath in trying to explain to them what it meant to be open and affirming. I no longer waste my breath when I get that question. When somebody asks me, are you the pastor of that gay church? I say, joyfully and happily, yes, I am. I want to read something for you. I read it last year on this same Sunday, and I'll read it next year on this same Sunday. But I like it, and I hope that you will hear it and that you will like it too. People ask me sometimes, is this a gay church? It is a privilege to answer. Ours is absolutely, gladly, hopefully, and humbly, gaily, a gay church where everyone, including heterosexual members and friends, is welcome, where everyone is needed, where everyone's experience is cherished as a sacred text because no one's experience of living or loving can be comprehensive, because each of us holds clues the others need about how to live with dignity and joy as a human person. And none of us knows enough about that yet to be considered whole. Gay church, straight church, people's church, a human congregation made holy by the holy hopes and fears and dreams of all who wish to come. Come in, we say, come out, come in. We're all in this together. I will not speak of tolerance with its courteous clenched teeth and bitter resignation. I will not speak of acceptance of other people and some other kind of lifestyle. I can only look in laughing wonder at human life in all its incarnations. I can only understand our common longing to breathe in deep, deep gulps of it. I cannot think of being anybody else's ally, because even that implies some degree of separation, some degree of safety for some of us, but not all. We are allied with no one and with nothing but love, within which all the differing, gorgeously various, variant, beautifully deviant aspects of ourselves are bound together in elegant unity. I know that on some days, some sad and disappointing days, these words describe the church that yet shall be and not the church that is. I know. But I know, too, that to answer is an act of creation. To answer this question and some others is a privilege, a prophetic imperative, a joy, a duty, and a holy sacrament. I say to you once again, our straight friends, our gay friends, our lesbian friends, our transgender friends, our bisexual friends, I have no tolerance for you. But what we have here for one another is love. And in it we are all included. In it we shall be united. And in it we shall live out our vocation of being God's people and naming God's people and calling, and creating a world where there is dignity enough